Welcome back to another episode of Conscious Coaches on a Mission. I am so glad to introduce you to our today's guest. She's absolutely awesome. I've already been on her podcast and now she's on mine. So we're definitely clicked in. Catharine O'Leary, and she is a person who helps you connect to your ideal clients by asking correct questions. So this is going to be kind of the direction of where we're going to go today. So welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. And I'm so happy to be here. And it was so much fun having you on my podcast. And we just connected. And I'm glad to be here and talking to your audience.
Awesome. So let's start by looking at the major premise of what is it that you're actually talking about. So your kind of way of being in the world of entrepreneurship and helping people is through connecting the entrepreneurs, especially to the people that they want to work with, by connecting the dots for the audience, right? Like asking specific questions and eliciting certain response that then starts the conversation. Am I understanding it correctly?
That is correct. Yeah.
So tell us like how that works. Like, let's start there because that's the foundational piece for everything you do.
Absolutely. So basically what we want to do is get curious, because one of the things that entrepreneurs do is we ask a couple of questions around what problems our ideal clients have. And then we go straight into a solution. We go straight into a sales conversation, and it feels a little bit like proposing marriage on the first date, because you haven't asked really any questions. You haven't really gotten to know the person. You haven't built the relationship to a point where you can offer advice or offer solutions. So what I like to do is actually, create a client attraction system that talks about and asks a lot of questions of what your ideal clients are looking for. So by asking questions that your ideal clients are asking themselves, or that your ideal clients want to know the answers to, you draw them in. And by making sure you're just talking to your ideal clients, then you're able to have those conversations around advice and solutions and so on that are customized, personalized, and they build those relationships, but they're with the people that you should be talking to, as opposed to everyone. I mean, we talked a little bit before about, like you want to be talking to your niche and to your target audience, because they're the people that are going to be ready to work with you, as opposed to the tire kickers and the freebie seekers and, the people that maybe aren't ready for you. So by asking questions and getting super curious about your ideal clients and what they're going through and the questions they're asking themselves and how you can help them think through the problem that they have to the solution that you have, then they are ready to listen to the solution and actually, continue the conversation with you. And you can do that in a quiz format. You can do that with, a 60-second quiz.
Well, yeah, and you are the quiz queen. This is what you do. So how does somebody know what is the right question?
So I always like to start with your ideal clients. I call it the 3 a.m. question. So what's that 3 a.m. question that your clients are waking up with about the problem that you help them solve? And, so what, at 3 a.m., what do they wake up, jarred and thinking, oh my gosh, I just wish I could? Or how am I going to scale my business? How am I going to, get to the next level? I wish I could have more time in my, in my day.
Or for a relationship coach, maybe it's like their client is thinking, why is he not texting me back?
Or how do I make this work? Or how do we get better at talking? Maybe if it's nutrition, like how do I lose, how do I get better sleep, or how do I lose more weight? So for the problems that you solve, what is your ideal client actually waking up thinking about in their language? So remember to put it in their words and not our words, because we're on the other side of the solution a lot of the times. So the way we talk about the problem when you've already solved it is very different for the person that's actually immersed in the problem right now. Like, they don't see the forest for the trees. They just see the problem. So what are the words that they use? Because by tapping into that and being able to turn that worry into a question that you can help them answer in a quiz format will draw them in. They'll be like, oh my gosh, yeah, I was just thinking of that. I was just, I'm worried about that. I'm worried about, how do I get more clients in the door so I can make the payments that I need to make? Like whatever that language is for you, or for your ideal client, so that you can draw them in so that they know that it's something that they want a solution to immediately, but also so that you can start helping them go through the stepping stones of thinking through, how do I get from where I am now to the solution? So that's where the rest of the questions come in. So things like, well, what do you usually ask your potential clients? I call it a coffee chat. So you sit down and somebody says, you know what, I have this problem. This is what I'm waking up at 3 a.m. worried about. Okay, there are likely a couple of questions that you usually ask them, like, where are you in your business right now, or where are you in your relationship right now? What's your biggest challenge? What's your biggest desire? And how do you see your life in a year from now if all of this was going the way you'd like it to? Like there are typical questions that you tend to ask as a business owner. Those questions can help your ideal clients go from the problem that they have, in their own words, to starting to see the pathway to you and to your solution, as they go through and say, oh, well, if I'm a relationship coach that's helping women reclaim the voice in their relationship, well, how long have you been with your partner? Do you go on date nights? Have you been to any kind of counseling or therapy before? Like, what are the questions that you would typically ask to start the conversation around, oh, I think that maybe you could do some active listening or some journaling, whatever those kind of solutions might be. There's some questions that you kind of prime them with that they already are asking themselves, that make them think logically through the problem to the solution, so that you can then be, the amazing Kreskin that's like, oh my gosh, she was in my head. Like, how did that even happen? Of course I need to do active listening, or of course, journaling is going to help me. So then they want to continue the conversation with you, right? Then, if you want to learn more, then you book a call, or you go to the webinar, or you go to the masterclass, or you take the workshop in order to learn more. So you've, in a very short time frame, you've talked about the problem that they're worried about most. You've kind of softly taken them through a roadmap to the solution, and you've offered them something they can do right away. And then you've invited them to another conversation where you can get deeper into the actual solution, so that you're not jumping straight into a conversation about, for $5,000, we can do this, because that's what a lot of entrepreneurs tend to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that actually makes very good sense as far as like what I teach my clients is how to get pre-sold clients. Well, we get pre-sold clients by educating them ahead of time. And the questions you're talking about, that's very similar to what typically, like in the way that like I work with my clients, is this is what we would do in a sales call. So we would kind of like have the client arrive themselves at the idea of desire to work with us, instead of ever just like selling directly, because that doesn't work anyway. So here you're doing it on the front end to people that don't know you yet. So it's sort of like putting a free content out there, only here instead of a free content that's one post, it becomes a quiz, right?
Correct. It becomes a quiz that people can take, and then they do get a report at the end of the quiz. You do solve the question that you've been posed, like that you posed in the original quiz question that they're struggling with. That's your lead magnet. Like, that's the little report, that's the web or the video that you give them to say, oh, you need to do maybe some more active listening. Here are 3 tips that you can practice right now with your partner to increase your active listening. If that's all they get and they walk away with just that, they're complete, in the sense that they've got a start to the answer of the solution. But of course, you want them to continue on, because now you built that authority up, that know, like, and trust factor. You built a little bit of a relationship. They know what they're going to be talking about when they get into your calendar. You don't have to take the time on the call to go through that preliminary, let's, get to, know what we do. And that part of the sales call is done in the quiz, so that you now are spending, time just talking about how are we going to work together. Like it's not an education process anymore. That's done already.
Yeah, and it sounds like a different sort of access point for people. I've seen something like that with Video Ask and some other things when people kind of like do like if this then that kind of like a kind of conditional answer. But here it sounds like it's more in depth and very much tailored to the business, right? To like the questions you want to ask them. So where do you find here comes in the knowledge of your audience? Would somebody need to do market research prior to understand this, or is this also could be used in a sense kind of like a survey sort of to get their answers as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I actually, from in my corporate experience, 30 years in corporate, I did market research and consumer insights all the way through for the Fortune 100 companies like Apple and Pepsi and HP. A survey tends to be something that is one-sided. So a business will go and ask a bunch of questions from people, pull in the data, like pull in the information and go and use it in whatever way they see fit. But the consumer doesn't get anything out of that, right? All they've done is maybe they get paid. Like in market research, we used to pay people to do a survey because, like to incent them, because that's all they get. With the quiz, it's more of a two-way conversation where you're saying, I think that you have this question. And, if you do, then take this quiz to find an answer. So they're getting an answer out of the quiz. You're getting the information still. So you're still using it like, a data collection tool. And that information is gold. But now it's a two-way conversation. And you can, your original question around, can you use it for market research? Absolutely. One of the things though with a quiz is to really know your target audience. You got to know that 3 a.m. question. That's where your research needs to be. Like, you need to do.
You got to know where to start.
You got to know where to start. You got to know what they're saying in their language. So one of the tips I can give people right now is, use your topic. Like if you're a relationship coach, use your topic, go onto Amazon, go into the books section and, type in your topic and search for what books have been published in the last 30 or 90 days, right? The best thing about that is that not only do you get the titles to see what people are, putting out there in the sense of they've done the research, they know what the 3 a.m. question is, but also what the keywords that they're using in their descriptions. So they've also done all the SEO keyword search research. So you can kind of pick and choose a little bit off that. So if you, and Amazon is a great place to do some free market research as opposed to doing paid market research. Google is another resource. Podcasts and YouTube. Also, places where you can go to find how your ideal clients are talking about the problem that they're having.
Yeah, and I think the conversation piece of that is also very important, because if we kind of like talk at them, that's very different than if we talk with them. So being able to converse in the sense that doesn't like it includes you and it includes them. So then there is a depth of interaction that, well, I teach energetics as well. So like from my perspective, that means that it builds a relationship. So now there's reciprocity that's also created. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And the best market research is always going to be talking with your ideal clients. 100%. So whether that's qualitatively, where you're getting them into, a conversation, maybe an in-depth conversation, or it's qualitatively, like you were saying with a survey, you can do that, but there are also tools that you can use that don't require, a big list of clients or what, like that you can get started with.
Well, that makes sense. And it's interesting twist too on the quiz that you're talking about, because I think majority of people think of a quiz as in like, what's your money personality, or what archetype you are, or something like that. Like I do some of this kind of assessments myself in my work, and many of my clients do as well. Those are kind of like more typical assessment kind of an idea that's paid, or free, that's like, what are you? Are you this or are you that? Kind of a things that we all see online. You're talking about something that's actually generating paid clients.
Well, yes. So there's lots of ways to get curious and to ask questions in your business. One of them is through lead generation, and you can use a quiz, like we've been talking about, more of a lead generation quiz that's at the top of the conversation, so at the top of the funnel per se. What you were talking about just now with an assessment, or maybe an application form, or something that's a little bit more in depth, like an intake form, that's probably further down where they're already a client, or they're about to go into more of an in-depth discussion to become a client, but you don't have to really get like they're already ready to go, like they're paid, or they're about to be paid. And that's when assessments are fantastic. Or the intake forms, or the questionnaires that might be a little bit longer. That's when the survey it can be used. So that you're collecting information that you can use further down the line to help them. Maybe it's, curriculum, or it's, how to coach them better, pre and post a course, or a summit even. What are they expecting, before the summit? What should they look for? And then after the summit, what did they get? Those kinds of, surveys, assessments, so on. So everything's a question. And if you approach, your clients, your ideal clients, with curiosity, it's going to help you, go a long way to attracting the right clients. And then, releasing the ones that aren't ready for you, because there's somebody else's best client. So just attract the best and release the rest.
Yeah, and it's so important to not try to work with everybody, is to pick the right people. So how does the question connects to the right person in your world? Like, asking the right question will then sort of push away the wrong person, right?
Right. So as people, so your 3 a.m. question, so the first question that they get should be attracting your ideal client. You might get others, and that's fine. But as they go through the next subset, like, 5 to 8 questions, there are going to be people that fall off, right? They're not going to complete the quiz. Wasn't what they thought it was going to be. It's not really, jiving with them. It's not something they're interested in. That's fantastic. I love it when people actually don't finish my quiz, because they're not meant for me. We're not meant to work together at this point in time. And if they can't take a 5 or 8 question quiz, then are they going to stick around for a 6-week course, or a 6-month mastermind, or whatever it is? So I don't have them in my calendar when I have sales calls. And as like your time, that's what you got to guard against. So you want to make sure that anyone that gets on the phone with you is already pre-qualified really heavily. So, when those people fall off, and because the questions don't, match what they thought it was, they're really not interested in that solution, they don't want to go any further, great, let the quiz do that. Let the quiz do that for you.
Yeah, that's very important to kind of pre-qualify them through that. And you mentioned 5 or 6 questions, so it's a pretty short quiz. So does that mean that the ending of that quiz is a call to action to set up a call, or is it a natural direction to some sort of a webinar or a video training that then leads into set up a call, kind of like a sub step in between?
It can be whatever is best for you and what your marketing strategies are. So what I like to do is really work with people so that the quiz lives within their business and their marketing strategy. So that it's not a one-off something, because you put a lot of effort into a quiz. This isn't like a 1-hour effort. You're putting in a lot of strategic thought, and the ideal client, the questions that you're going to ask, the reports that you're going to give them that are customized. And the email sequences that you're going to be sending them, maybe some videos that you're going to be sending them. And then the next step can be any number of things. They can all go to an invite to a webinar. They could all go to a call, Or maybe there's one outcome or segment that, is really super hot lead for you that you want to get on a call. And maybe everyone else goes to a sequence that, nurtures them a little bit more and sends them to a masterclass or sends them to a sales page for a course of some sort, like maybe a starter course. So you can mix and match that.
Okay, so just so we understand correctly, the quiz is the idea to bring in people who have interests that you're targeting, and then out of that, the wrong people will fall off or not finish or whatever. The right people will hopefully go through the whole thing, and then you build a CRM automation on the back end to send them, to truncate them essentially into different nurture sequences or lower end course or call with you, right?
Yep. Or everyone goes to one thing. If they all go to a webinar, that's fine. But it's up to you. And you can also change that as your marketing calendar changes. So if you only launch, your course every 6 months, maybe you only have the quiz going to the webinar for the course, every 4 months. And then every, for the rest of the year, maybe it's to a masterclass, or it's to a sales page, or it's to a nurture sequence, or it's to a wait list. Maybe you want to start, client wait lists. Like, when we open the doors again, do you want to be the first to enter? There's lots of things that you can do on the back end with it.
So how did you end up with this idea of questions as the way to go?
Well, actually, it's interesting because when I started my entrepreneurship, I didn't know quite how to make my market research and consumer insights corporate experience work. I was like, how is that going to work as a business? So I started in direct sales and network marketing. And what I learned very quickly was that while the events are fantastic and the community is great and I was having a lot of fun, I was terrible at lead generation, because I was attracting all the wrong kinds of people. I was spending hand over fist on paid ads that, didn't have any return. I was spending a ton of time trying to convince people on sales calls that shouldn't have really been sales calls. I just wasn't attracting high quality leads. And when I started to figure out I could do one of two things, I could go back to corporate and the 3-hour commute a day that was for me, or I could figure it out. And so I started to look around and question, how are other people doing this? Like, how can I be innovative? How can I make a connection that builds a relationship where I'm being authentic and I'm answering the questions and not like just diving in for the sale? And that's when I found quiz funnels, and I did some more research, and I was like, oh, well, I can create questions in my sleep. So this sounds easy. So I created one for my network marketing business, and I was able to triple my leads and double my sales. And then I started to do quizzes for my friends that had businesses, and they got similar results. And then I was hooked, because I think that this is a really fun way to engage with your ideal clients and build a relationship really quickly. And that doesn't, or that helps you streamline your time so you're being more efficient.
And I guess everybody always wants to know, like, how do they filter for not just that it's the right client as far as like that they fit their psychographics, but more that financially they can afford their services. How would that be woven into the questions? Would that be like the way of posing the question that only somebody with that income would have, or like what's your way about that?
So it really depends on what you're using the quiz for and how far, in the journey, the client journey that the prospect is. But that being said, I do, there is a question at probably one of the last questions to say, how much have you spent to solve this problem in the past? Or, how much, like ranges, like I've spent, 5 to 10,000, 10 to 15,000. And then you can at the back end, then qualify people to say, oh, these people aren't really for me, or they need to go to a lower, a lower end, a low ticket offer, or these people are super hot and I really need to talk to them right away. So you can ask that question if it's going to help you kind of make sure that people are going in the right stream. So if you're having, like, if everyone's going to a high-end mastermind, then yeah, you should ask. You should make sure that people know, like, this is and I know that one person asked this, like, this is a 5-figure conversation. When the sales call is being booked than during the quiz, but you could do it either way. You can ask and just say, like, are you willing to invest in yourself in this way? So you can ask that question.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people right.
You're going to get people, like, saying no. And you may or may not want to do that because sometimes people find the money, right? So it just depends on how you want to do that. It depends on your strategy.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of times entrepreneurs kind of freak out. Like, they attract people who totally sold on what they do, but then they're like thinking it's $500 and it's, let's say, 15. And they're like, well, that's like completely. So to me, I always try to introduce that 5-6 figure, whatever the investment would be, somewhere within the prior to the call, right? So that you don't get surprised people on the call. And that's kind of what you're talking about, that there are ways to ask those questions within the quiz system, which is really good news, because I think for a lot of people, that's one of the most important questions. Like, we can get good at selecting the correct type of a person, but then the financial part always ends up being an issue. And you're right that sometimes you don't want to list the price, obviously, if it's a really high level offer, because you don't want them to choose on money, you want them to choose on value. And this is a interesting way to kind of weave that in through a quiz. So what do you say, like, to wrap it up, as the main thing that somebody can benefit by if they install this concept of a quiz somehow into their business funnel for lead gen or whatever?
Well, yeah, for lead gen, I think it's really attracting your best ideal clients and then, releasing the rest. So it's that vetting process being done for you, well before people get onto a sales call, so that you're only talking to the people that are kind of, like, pretty much ready to go. And now you're just talking about which program of yours that they want to invest in. So I think that's the primary thing. And it also, as you go through this process and you think through your business strategy and your marketing strategy, and you really get into your ideal target audience and what they're struggling with, there's a lot of clarity that comes with going through the process of building a quiz. You get super clear super fast when you only have 5 questions to ask. So you get down to, oh man, like, I'd love to ask like 100 questions, but if you only have 5, that real estate becomes very expensive. So you get strategic pretty quickly.
And does the quiz mean some sort of a technology that you help them with, in addition to help them with the questions, or is your part only one or the other?
So I typically help with the questions. I have lots of different suggestions for the technology. There are a lot of different technology solved similar to a CRM. It depends on your budget, depends on how many leads, depends on how many quizzes you want to do. So there's a lot of factors to go into that. So I have kind of like the low end, really easy, quick technology, the medium, or the, like, all the bells and whistles, and we can decide which technology is best for you. But yeah, there are lots of technologies out there that can solve that for you. But I do help you at least choose which technology and help you get it integrated.
But your expertise is mostly in actually helping somebody fine tune and zoom into what are the 5 things that are the most important things to ask.
Well, and the quiz hook, like that big question, like that first question that's going to bring in your ideal clients, because if that's not working, then none of the other questions matter. Do
people run ads to the quiz?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, because so that's why the hook is like super important.
Well, and it's really important now with Facebook changes and some of the, like, Facebook, at least Facebook in particular, but paid advertising can be very expensive. So anything that's going to draw in people that are going to take the quiz and be leads, but qualified leads. I have one client that has gone from something like $10 a lead down to 83 cents a lead. And her conversion rates have all gone up because they're high quality leads. And that was on Facebook paid ads. So if you have, a nonprofit, you've got the Google grants going, and you want a quiz to help you, convert those ads better, like these are all places where a quiz can live. That's what I love about quizzes. They're platform agnostic. So it doesn't matter if you use them on whatever social platform. You can use them for your speak to sell. You can use them as your podcast gift. You can use them as, your networking gift, your summit gift, everything. So it goes wherever you go.
It becomes kind of a really cool entry into one's world.
Yes. Yep. Exactly.
Well, awesome. Hey, thank you so much for explaining all of that. Now, how can people find out more about this type of thing that you do and maybe like check out if it would work for them?
Yeah, well, I would love it if you went to quizformybiz.com, and that you can take my quiz, which is all about how to close the client attraction gaps that you might be having, and actually how to bridge that gap, and then learn more if you'd like to, and that's how you can connect with me. So quizformybiz.com is where you can find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Catharine. And yes, all this information is going to be in the show notes. You can look through all her links and check it out. And this gift, of course, we're going to put there as well. So definitely check it out. It's really interesting. And thank you so much for introducing that idea. I think most people never think from that angle. This is really cool and could be highly beneficial, an unusual kind of a way, which totally logical, right? Because if you think about this is like what you do in a sales call, what you do through your whole marketing with like your application, like everything is that, but in this format, that's a really cool kind of a way to pull people in. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for having me. And thank you to your audience for listening to us.